Hello friends, and welcome to another video. This video is it's going to be about the Gospel of Thomas. Don't worry about that. All of the videos have something to do with the Gospel of Thomas. But this video relates also back to the canonical Gospels, the Gospels that the Church approved in the 4th century as being the official canon of the New Testament. Now, anybody that knows me knows I have a great deal of problems with mainstream Orthodox Christianity. Number one, because I studied the church, the history of the church very thoroughly, I mean exhaustively. And if I read one book, I've read 1,000 and underlined them and highlighted them too. And Christianity, as we know it today, take it from me, is a man-made religion. They do not follow the teachings, and contrary to what they may tell you, they do not follow the teachings in the New Testament. I get a lot of mail sometimes from fundamentalists. And if you're a fundamentalist watching, you might as well just cut this off because you're not going to like what I have to say here today. But I get a lot of mail from fundamentalists that, quoting verses to me, and I can see they don't even have an idea more often than not. I don't say all the time, but more often than not, 95% of the time, they don't have an idea of what they're quoting to me or why it was even in the Bible to begin with. And of course, there are many places. If you've read any of Dr. Bart Ehrman's books, who's it's the Charles Gray professor at the University of North Carolina, at Chapel Hill, religious studies, and probably the world's foremost expert on New Testament Greek and the books of the New Testament. The extant scrolls that we have, copies of copies, is all that we have. We don't have the original scrolls. But if you read any of his popular books, they're very easy to read. It's scholarly work, but it's written where it's like a mystery story. You really become fascinated. He's a New York Times bestseller. It's made him a multimillionaire several times over writing those books. And he really exposes a lot. He started out as a fundamentalist Christian. Went to Bob Jones University, and then I believe he went to Princeton. I believe that's where he got his PhD in Greek, or Greek and Hebrew, I believe, something to that effect. I may be wrong there. But anyway, of course, he spent a lot of time at the Vatican going over the scrolls that are available, and that he could translate and found so many mistakes, so many errors, so many insertions that had no business in being there that we have today in our Bible. Many of them there. So, you've got to understand how Christianity, if you're going to be a Christian, that's fine. That's fine. If you want to be a mainstream Christian, that's fine too. Each of us has that right. But at least know the history of your church. Know the history of your faith. Know what has happened to it. How has it changed? How is it different from the time of Jesus? See, this is the good luck we have in finding the Nag Hammadi scrolls, the text, all of the different, what they so-called lost gospels, of which the Gospel of Thomas is one, the Gospel of Phillips, the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, the different ones, the Gospel of Truth. These are fascinating books. They give us an insight that we never had before into early Christianity, before it was Christianity, when it was just called the Way. That's the way the followers of Jesus in the beginning referred to themselves. They were just members of the Way, followers of the Way. And I like that term really better because it denotes a different Christianity from what we have today. There's been a long-standing argument between mystics like me, and I consider myself a mystic because I do an awful lot of meditation and receive information in that way, and I just believe in being still and knowing that He is God. I think there's nothing like that. You do that once, twice, 3 times a day, and I don't know. I don't care what's going on in your life. Something always works out, and it works out to the betterment. And I guarantee, as I always say, not to have problems, because that's what we're here for. That's how our soul grows, through contrast and comparison. That's how we experience this space-time continuum that we find ourselves in right now, our soul. And that's the reason we're here, is to spiritually grow through what we learn through physical experience. That's why in some of the other videos I talk about raising to a higher consciousness. That's what one of the main themes of the Gospel of Thomas is, taking you to a higher consciousness. And it will be the cumulative effect of watching these videos that will have that very effect upon you. So be sure and tune back in, subscribe down there, and come back each time I put up a video. I'm trying to put up a couple a week. If I have one, I have 100 that need to be up. So And as one fellow said to me the other day, you never run out of anything to say something about the Bible and about the Gospel of Thomas. That's absolutely true, because I eat, sleep, and breathe it. To me, the mystic path of Thomas is a magical path. I have had so many experiences that if I were to tell them to you right now, you would absolutely think I was lying. You'd say, this guy's nuts. That happened. Yeah, this guy's nuts. That appeared in front of me. Yeah, this guy's nuts. So I won't go into belaboring any of the circumstances that have happened to me. But if I were to die today, I can say I've had a very interesting, a most interesting life. As the saying goes, the Robert Frost poem, two roads diverged in a wood and I chose the way less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. Anyway, I want to talk to you about the book of Mark. And you know how mainstream Christians, we were always taught, I know in the Presbyterian church and the Methodist church that I grew up in, those two churches in the South, where it's a lot of Scots, there's usually a lot of Presbyterians, so people with Scottish background like I have in my family. And so there was this pressure to go out and proselytize, to go out and convert people, get them to your way of thinking, to your religion. The Baptists are big on that, you know what I mean? Have you been saved? I can't think of how many times somebody has come to my door and asked me if I've been saved. I usually ask them, from what? And that usually starts a whole new directions when I do that. I have a lot of jokes to tell about what happens in situations like that. I usually let them go after a little twisting and turning around. But this is not contrary to what you've been taught. Evidently, at least according to the book of Mark, this is not the reason Jesus came here, to save us or to forgive us for our sins. Boy, can I see the fundamentalist heads rolling right now. I will get the letters. I bet you're writing a letter right now if you're a fundamentalist. Just save your time. Yeah, I've read them all. Don't send me any more. I don't need any more. I know I'm going to hell. I've got a front row seat there. But fortunately, I don't believe in hell, so that doesn't bother me too much either. But, have you been saved? And this saved thing, this is all the fabrication and the extrapolation that they've taken out of the Bible, starting with Catholicism in the 4th century, and they ruled for 1,000 years. So when Martin Luther broke away in the Reformation and the Protestants began, the Anabaptists and the different ones in France, the Huguenots, they all thought they were different from Catholicism. They were slightly different. There's not a hair's difference hardly between the faith and what the beliefs of a Methodist and the beliefs of a Roman Catholic. Oh, I know John Calvin had a lot of sideline beliefs that he was working on, but I'm talking about the major beliefs, and the Trinity and all of these things, these bizarre things that had no bearing, had no relevancy at all to early Christianity. These are all fabrications created mainly by Roman Catholicism. And I have a lot of good Catholic friends, so I don't want to offend anybody. I mean, if you enjoy going to church, go to church. If it gives you value fulfillment, that's what you should do. I'm not advocating not going to church. I'm not advocating getting away from your religion. I'm just advocating that you need to explore things like the Gospel of Thomas to find alternative ways of looking at things. Believe me now, if you're serious about your spirituality, there's no path more potent or impotent. So we saying this out, impotent. I say it the way we say it in Georgia, impotent. Than the Gospel of Thomas. It is probably, most scholars are thinking now, the earliest text extant at the time of Jesus, closest to the time when Jesus actually walked the world. So that means that it's more likely than not reflects the true and original teaching of Jesus. Of course, now this book, the Gospel of Thomas, was outlawed by the Roman Catholic Church. You were not allowed to have a copy of this. So several people were punished by death, by fire over this book. Not everybody was punished that way, but I'm saying that you were not allowed to have a copy of it. And when you read it, you can understand why, because it more or less advocates you don't need a priest, you don't need a church, you don't need the Pope in Rome, you don't need anybody to have a relationship with God. You can have a very direct one-on-one relationship. And I don't think the church wanted that. That's not a good way to raise funds, to have a one-on-one relationship with God, because then the church makes no money off of it. So they're developed within early Christianity as there always is with all religions. I don't care whether it's Islam, I don't care whether it's Hinduism, Buddhism. There are always two different religions within a major religion. There's the religion of the masses. These are the people that perfunctorily go to mass or go to church or go to the temple or something, and they do the rituals, the beads, and the statuary and all of the things that make them feel, in their own way, probably closer to God. I'm not against that. That's fine if that serves their purpose. A lot of people are not ready for this advanced high spirituality. I can understand that. So there is a need for that. I'm not criticizing that at all. But there's also another side. There's a mystical side to all of these religions. And in Christianity, there's a secret teaching, just as there's a secret teaching within almost all religions. Within Hinduism, the Vedas, it's not too secret, but it is a mystical religion. It has a mystical basis. There's the different gurus. And there's a lot of evidence that Jesus may have spent time in the East too, during the missing years before his ministry started and the time that he was a young man. So we don't know. But I'll tell you, the Gospel of Thomas gives an awful lot of indication of that, because you find mystery after mystery after mystery. You're going to find in these videos some of the most fascinating facts and revelations that you could ever imagine. Ever imagine. You'll be anxious to put it into practice to see if this really works. Yeah, there are techniques in there, formula for doing things. Once you know how to read the language, and I'm going to explain that to you. That's been revealed to me, thankfully. An unusual source, but nevertheless has been revealed to me, so I'm thankful for that. Anyway, in the Gospel of Mark, I was talking about being saved and all of that. In the Gospel of Mark, I want to read to you a passage from the 4th chapter of the Gospel of Mark. Here Jesus is talking to his disciples. But when he was alone, those around him with the 12 apostles, asked him about the parables. And he said to them, "To you it is given to know the mystery of the kingdom of God. But to those that are who are on the outside," who's not in the small group, that's what he's talking about, "all things come in parables." And then he goes on to explain why they come in parables. So that seeing they may see and still not perceive. In other words, he didn't want them to understand. He didn't want them to perceive what he was talking about. And hearing, they may hear and still not understand, lest they should turn and their sins should be forgiven them. Lest they should turn and their sins should be forgiven them. Now, when you read, that's a very strong indication he didn't want everybody's sins to be forgiven them, for whatever reasons. And there are mystical reasons behind that, and we'll get into that in another video. That's a deeper subject. But suffice it for now to know that it's in the Gospels. It's in the book of Mark. Jesus didn't just come here to to save everybody and forgive everybody's sins. That's the sales routine of the church. There's a higher purpose behind why Jesus came here. There's a higher purpose behind the Christos, the Christ. Each one of us has that potential dwelling within us. And that's what Jesus was coming to tell us, and that's what he tells us in the Gospel of Thomas. This is why the church wanted it outlawed. It tells the complete opposite story, everything. Of course, there's nothing about the birth of Jesus or his life or anything like that, just his mystical sayings. His sayings of mystical power. It's not a synoptical like the synoptic gospels. Matthew, Mark, and Luke are synoptic gospels. In other words, they have a recounting of his life. And of course, the book of John is not a synoptic gospel. It's called the book of John. And one fellow wrote to me and said, "There's 4 gospels." No, there are 3, and one of them is the book of John. So know that. Christians do not, as a rule, and I know I'm being very hard on them, but they need to be hard on them. Christians, as a rule, do not read the Bible. Now, that's not all of them, but it's about 90% of them. And they only read short bits of it if they do. It's become a habit within Christianity, and I guess it started when the Bible was printed in Latin, and the priest was the only one that could read Latin, and so it was left for him to read and interpret the Bible, and I guess Protestants carried it over into their religion. But most people rely on the minister to tell them what to believe. They don't examine the scriptures. But if you do, you find things like these. And I'm going to show many more things in these videos that are going to surprise you about the Bible. Many more things, bigger than even this. But this indicates that Jesus had a secret teaching, that he taught only to those who were ready. And that is what the Gospel of Thomas is about. It is a book not for everyone, but a book for those that are ready. And I would say if you're watching this video right now, that you're probably one of the ones that are ready. So stick and stay, it's bound to take. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Be sure and subscribe.